This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo's free. He goes to Gibbs wide. Edge of the box. Foley. Yes! Great goal! What a hit from Arena! Gibbs wide. They've only gone and done it again. Forest back in the lead. Through Morgan Gibbs White. Oh, and he scores! And the City ground goes ballistic.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Red Side of the Trent, here to preview the Newcastle United game from a Forest perspective. Obviously, we will have a opposition fan view out as well this week. I'm joined by regular Lee Clark. Lee, how are you, first of all?
Yeah, all good. Happy to keep looking at the league table and seeing us third.
How did you enjoy the wedding you attended instead of the football, where you got probably score updates and league updates as you were going?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of Forest fans there, which kind of helped. I'll be honest, it was an awful experience up until we scored. I think if West Ham had scored first, I'd have been like constantly on my phone. But once we'd scored first, I'll be honest, I didn't fancy us losing. And then when I think it was Reece that popped it in our group chat that someone had been sent off, my initial reaction was, oh no, not another red card for us. But when I found out he was a West Ham player, I'll be honest, I didn't really keep tabs on the scores at all. And it was actually me who told one of the other Forest fans at the wedding that we'd gone 2-0 up when I had a quick check while I was at tea. So yeah, it was a strange one because I was gutted I wasn't there, but obviously it was for a good cause.
Yeah, I mean, I got the Trenton experience, and amongst the chaos that is happening in the world right now, Forest being in third is, I don't know, probably one of the least unexpected things, but at least it's not as crazy as some things that are happening, like, I don't know, Trump getting re-elected as the US president potentially. I mean, we're not going into politics too much, but you said you managed to rewatch the game. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it was good. We talk about sliding doors moments, don't we? I think if it's such a strange situation, because I think if they score when we clear it off the line, I think it was Wood who cleared it off the line.
It does, yeah, it did, yeah.
There's just no stopping the man, is there? Attacking, defending. So yeah, I think if they score there, they probably go in 11v11 still. It could be a completely different game because we know what quality West Ham have got, even if they are a bit of a basket case at the moment. So yeah, it was. I think that was the pivotal moment of the match. But yeah, I thought after the sending off, we had, it seemed for a while that we might make a bit of hard work of it, but I don't think we haven't really looked troubled, certainly with 10 men. So yeah, it was a really positive performance against a team that, to be fair, are established in the Prem. Before this season, they were established in Europe, reached won a European trophy, didn't they?
Yeah. So
yeah, I thought it was a really positive result, and more pleasingly, a really positive performance.
Do you think that's been our most dominating performance since we've come back into the Premier League? Because I didn't ask this actually on Sunday, but I thought I'd ask it to you.
Yeah, I suppose it is in terms of winning by 3 goals. A difficult one, I suppose, given the nature of the opposition and the quality that they've got. Probably, obviously, the fact that they played the full second half with 10 men might bring some other. But there hasn't been many, has there? Leicester at home was one that was pretty dominant. But again, there were situations in that game where the Leicester went down that year. So can you really put that one into the mix? I don't know. I think it was certainly the most comfortable we've looked. The most we've looked like a Premier League side, I thought. But you say that, and then next week we go and do. At the minute, it just feels like we have a performance like that, and then we go and do it again. So hopefully, it's going to continue, and we'll just keep getting better and better, really.
I guess that's where the consistency element kind of comes into it. But I mean, I don't think we're a team that is set up to dominate football matches, but we can dominate it in spells and in certain ways, I think, that can kind of be perceived as dominant, but maybe not like as like, oh, we're going to have like loads and loads of possession and stuff. But I think we've definitely got a different style to a lot of the league and how a lot of the league wants to play football. I don't know if you've got a similar opinion to that, or a different one?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think when you've called sort of like a Jurgen Klopp style dominant over the years, that they're heavy metal, aren't they? They're constantly attacking. I don't think we're quite there yet. But I mean, one thing that I will say is I think that sort of. I think the other 2 seasons we were in the Prem, when we won games, it tended to be we'd have, if we scored 2, we'd have probably 3 or 4 shots. Whereas now you get the impression that if we become even more ruthless, we could actually really start to batter some teams. And I think that was probably the most pleasing thing about Saturday, even though they'd only got 10 men. It was the fact that we actually left the field having battered aside 3-0. And to be honest, that probably flattered them. We probably could have scored a few more, a couple of good saves from the keeper. So I think the fact that the building blocks are there and Nuno's identified that by creating more chances we'll score more goals, it can only be a positive. I think, the manager previously, I think we were, not whether we were lucky when we won, I just think it was all a bit too nervy. It was we'd go in front and then we'd kind of sit on it. Some games we'd concede and we'd end up with a point, and then others we'd kind of ride our luck and it'd be brilliant moments of goalkeeping or really last-ditch defending that kind of got us over the line. So it's nice that we kind of, that sort of approach isn't sustainable, whereas the one that we, the style that we're trying to adopt now, I think is far more sustainable.
I mean, I've just kind of come off tangent because I've not wrote any notes for this episode or anything, but like I kind of was looking at some analysis that WT Analysis was doing on Twitter and everything, and we are a completely different entity to the rest of the league, in my opinion. I actually generally think, like, even down to like Ipswich and Southampton, they want to play possession-based football and kind of play through the lines, whereas we're a completely different kettle of fish, in my opinion. I just think we're so like the odd kid out or the black sheep, if you want to call it, in the field, because we don't play out from the back as such. We might do if teams allow us, but we kind of bypass midfield and kind of just get it up top. We're very, very much of a throwback, in my opinion, but with quality and some horrible players in there.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably not too dissimilar to Nuno's team that finished 7th in 2 successive seasons. I think they were always the black sheep up near with the big hitters. I think the style, I think I'm right in saying Wolves fans would probably correct me, but I think his style was a little bit different in the sense of the shape and the formation. I think he played 3 centre halves quite a lot.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I think it's effective. I think one thing that Nuno clearly wants from his team is that it's a team effort, and he's always keen to reiterate that in his press conferences. To be fair, it's not about one player; it's about the team. And that can only be a good thing as well. I think we see him from the fact that he's using 5 subs every game as well. Everyone's contributing. There doesn't seem to be any kind of sulking when players are out of the team. There's a desire to come in and put your name into the mix for the following game. So yeah, it's I can't disagree with that. You're right what you say. It's difficult to kind of tell. But if someone says, "Oh, what's your style of play?" You're right. It is a bit difficult to kind of say. But I just think it's based on a really strong team ethic and everyone pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, I got asked by the Newcastle fan on their preview. He's like, "Where do you see your weakness?" I'm going to ask you what you think our weakness is at the moment before I tell you what I said to him.
Tricky.
That was my first response.
I'd probably say our weakness is the fact that at the moment we're probably not used to being in the position that we're in the league table, which can, in theory, work as a weakness. I think there's still not a question mark, because that's really harsh, but like at the minute we're asking Elanga to do something that he's kind of not overly au fait with, I guess, because we're not kind of slipping him in behind all the time. So that side of the pitch probably is a small weakness, but the fact that we've got Aina makes it really strong defensively, which is strange because you can't really say your right hand side's weak. But I just think going forward, it'd be nice if that side of the pitch was quite as fluent and as effective as it is when Hudson-Odoi gets going on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I think Elanga is slowly playing himself into form. I thought his dead ball delivery on Saturday was phenomenal, actually, weirdly enough. To say we can't take... I mean, I've watched him take a free kick, I think, the other week at Leicester, and it was absolutely terrible. But I digress. I said to the Newcastle fan, I didn't want to try and blow smoke up our own arses or anything, but I don't see a weakness because of our team effort and their team effort and how we kind of press teams. It's not like a full, like you described as with Liverpool, heavy metal, is it? It's more like it's done in a very peculiar way, like Nuno does. He sets a lot of traps, and it's kind of will press you in certain areas, and there's definitely triggers there. That's not like, oh, let's just go and press from the front as a team and kind of go gung ho for it. There is definitely a method to the madness, which I really enjoy kind of looking at and seeing from that point of view as a bit of a football nerd. Just the way we're set up is just brilliant. And like you say, everyone's contributing. I mean, we didn't even mention James Ward-Prowse on Sunday, how he's going to get back in the team. Never mind Danilo and Sangare. Like, just the competition for places is extremely healthy. So long may it continue, as you always say.
Yeah, I suppose when Ward-Prowse has just got to look at someone like Dominguez as a bit of a someone to aspire to in this team, hasn't he? Because Dominguez was probably fifth choice at the start of the season. Certainly when Ward-Prowse first came in, and now he's undroppable along with Yates in midfield. So yeah, all he's got to do is when he does get a sniff of a chance. I mean, it's probably going to be an impact chance from the bench, isn't it, at the minute? So yeah, he's just got to grasp it and hope that he can force his way back in there.
Nico Dominguez has been sensational, I have to say. What a player. Just before we get into a little bit more about Newcastle and everything, obviously in the news, it's come out that Edu Gaspar is going to leave Arsenal, and it was heavily rumoured in the summer that Marinakis was really interested in him coming to be our head of football, because Marinakis has got obviously ourselves, Olympiacos, Rio Ave, and I believe he's trying to purchase Monza in Italy. I don't know if he was ever successful with that, but it's obviously come out that he wants Vasco da Gama now, I believe it is, in Brazil. What do you make of that and everything? And Marinakis must be I know money talks, but he's also got to be a persuasive person to kind of take Edu away from Arsenal, a project that he's been part of for 5 years, trying to get Arsenal to be challenging the Premier League, to come and be the head of football, as you want to call it, for a multi kind of franchise business or whatever you might want to name it. There must be something in that project for him to go, yeah, I really want to be a part of that.
Yeah, you'd think so. I think the fact he wants to oversee multi-clubs, I suppose, is probably one of the big things for him. Yeah, Marinakis doesn't take no for an answer, does he? I suppose. I think interestingly that he wants to buy a club in Brazil. I think, I mean, all the Brazilian pieces of talent we keep getting. It'd be nice if he opened a club so that we could get them even cheaper than we already do, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, why would you not want someone like Edu coming in with the contacts he's got? Let it happen. I think it'd be fascinating to see how much time he'd actually dedicate to us. Obviously, he'd be overseeing the whole of the Marinakis empire, if you like. But it can only be a good thing. I think what I would say is, I've said it before. I said it when Ross Wilson was getting pelters all the time. I think in that role in a sport like football, you're always going to have plenty of good things, and you're always going to have some bad things thrown in there. But I think if you look at his signings at Arsenal, they've largely been good. I don't think it can be a bad thing.
Yeah, and then obviously moving on, I got the thoughts of the guys on Sunday about Murillo's call up to Brazil. Long awaited one, I believe. I think it's kind of come a bit. It's never come too late, but I feel like he should have got it way earlier than he has done. What have you made of that news as well?
I mean, Brazil will probably play him on the left wing or something, won't they? They're just a nation that are renowned for not having amazingly good centre backs. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's mad that he's not got him before. There's probably going to be all sorts of people in the comments now, like reeling off these legendary centre halves. But I think when they've like been dominating World Cups and stuff like that, it's typically their attacking flair and their wide options that have caught the eye, isn't it, rather than the centre backs. So yeah, I think he'll be absolutely perfect in that Brazil team. Left-sided, likes to carry it out. He's just going to be really exciting for them, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And then I did want to ask you about the game you was at last night. Obviously, Forest were playing in the Not Senior Cup against Rennes or Rainworth, however you want to call them. But some youngsters on show that you would have got a closer look at. What have you made? What did you make of that game? And like any kind of names to kind of be on the lookout for future if they're going to ever like progress within the club?
Yeah, so I was on the line in the game. Bit of a strange one, like trying to think of little bits while it's going on for content, for work purposes and stuff like that. But yeah, Forest won 1-0. Adam Berry scored a free kick in the 91st minute, I think it was. He was steady, to be honest. Adam Berry. All the injured and suspended Rainworth players were behind the dugout, and they basically were giving pelters to the Forest players all night. How much money they earn. Oh, you'll never make it in the Prem. Every decision that they didn't get, I'll go and check VAR. All the usual standard stuff. So, as you can imagine, he was playing centre midfield at Bury. He ended up getting booked. He just lost his head a little bit of testosterone. Had a little go at someone, so the ref booked him. So, as you can imagine, when he scored his free kick, he kind of enjoyed it to the people who had been giving him stick all night. The best player I thought was Archie Whitehall in centre midfield. It was a mixed bag of a team. I think it was a very young team, from what I could gather with the names. It was a lot of the under 18s that play Saturday mornings. I think it was a lot of them, and I think I counted 4 that have been playing in like the Premier League 2 with the actual B team. One of those was Whitehall, and he was really good. Got a bit of Ryan Yates about him, I'll be honest. Put himself about, used the ball quite well. He was captain as well. So yeah, if you squinted from far away, you'd probably think it was Ryan Yates, to be fair. His physique isn't too dissimilar to Yates, and the way he kind of harries the opposition was very similar. But yeah, there was some. What I would say is you can see the standard is set even at that level, because not to be disrespectful to Raymond, because it's the level of football they play at. The dugouts, they've got 4 people stood up. All the subs are stood up. You know, I'm turning around and telling them, and you're sick of telling them. But that's that level of football. If it's Raymond against Gedlin in that league, for example, you'd be doing that all game as the assistant. Whereas Forest were good as gold. The standard was set. The moment any player turned around to the officials and said anything, it was shut up and play football. So yeah, it was a good experience, and it was nice to see some of the future stars.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Berry's come from Man United and was dubbed as like a kind of wonder kid, as you want to call it, and come to Forest. And I think he rejected a few other clubs before coming to us. So he's definitely someone that I've kind of been on the lookout for when Forest have played in, like, I don't know, Bristol Street Motors Cup or whatever you want to call it, or Carabao, I don't know, Johnson's Paint Tree, all them rubbish names anyway. I've already kind of looked at Zion Blake was an interesting one because he was on the bench, and I think he's only like 15, 16. He was like, Man United wanted him as well off us, and he snubbed them to stay with us. So
I think he came on really late on. I think they made 2 subs after they'd scored just to see things out, and I think he was one of them. So didn't really see much of him. I did admit. Go on. I was just going to say, we did get a little bit excited at the start when we got the team sheet, and one of the number 3 was actually called, I think it was Olusanya Aina, and we were like, oh. But it turns out he's just some relative. I think I'm right in saying it's his nephew. But from what I understand, Olusanya was in attendance last night. He was trying to be incognito, but some of the kids recognised him apparently. So.
he's too popular with his Ribena juice boxes and hot left foot. So you know. Yeah.
I mean, at the moment, if he had a hood on, I suppose the moment it comes down, you'd recognise the hair, wouldn't you? I suppose with how it is at the moment.
Yeah, and obviously Tim Cahill's lad would have been playing. I think he was on the team sheet that you sent into our group chat. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, he was steady as well. He wasn't again put himself about. The work rate was very good. I mean, like I say, I think Nuno said before that he's kind of keen to have this similar sort of mindset all through the levels. So it was clearly evident. The work rate was really good. And Rainworth played well, to be fair. Rainworth probably deserved a penalty shootout. But just one of those things, a moment of brilliance has won the game for Forest.
Yeah, interesting insight there, Lee. Obviously, Newcastle, Sunday, should I say, 2 p.m. on Sky, if those are interested and can't make the actual game. Another tough game in the Premier League. I don't really see there an easy game in this league. I didn't think Leicester was going to be an easy one, and it wasn't in that first half. And Newcastle will definitely be no different, even though we are at home and in relatively good form. They're on the back of a win against Arsenal. Lane, obviously, I spoke to John Lane from the True Faith podcast. That will be out on Friday for those listening right now. How do you see this game going about? Because Newcastle have been a bit of a bogey side for us at the City Ground.
They have, but I think all the games have been really entertaining, and I think that is good. The thing I would say is, of course, it's going to be a tough game. It's cliched, but there isn't an easy game in the Prem, because if you're not playing a team that's littered with millions of pounds worth of talent, you're playing a team that's fighting for their life, as we've been, for the last couple of years. So I think what I would say is it's nice to be going into a game against a good side, not thinking, God, we've got to win this one. Otherwise, if Ipswich win, we're going to be in the bottom three. It's nice to actually think, and I'm not going to I don't want to say free hit, because again, I think it's Christian that's always said, or possibly Reese, there's no such thing as a free hit, really. You always want to progress and you always want to try and get 3 points. But it is nice to actually go into the game. The starters will know what all the other teams have done, except for Chelsea and Arsenal, who play after us. It's nice to be going into it just thinking, let's just have a go again. Let's just see what happens. If we lose, this is going to be interesting as well, because the fan base is so unanimously again for the team at the minute. Everything's positive, everything's great. I just hope that when we do have a bad result, that it's not all doom and gloom again and all our players aren't good enough, because they've proved they're good enough. They've proved that we're going to get positive results across the season. So yeah, I just think it's nice to be going into it with the mindset of, let's just have a go, let's just see what happens. And you know what? If Newcastle win it again like they did last year, when I think Bruno took the net off from about 25 yards, didn't it? When we lost, was it 3-2 last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
one of the many 3-2s we had.
Yeah, if we lose in that style again, you sometimes have to tip your hat. And Newcastle are certainly a side that can come and maybe edge a really tight game with a moment of brilliance. So it could happen, but hopefully we can be on the right side of it this time.
Do you take any kind of positives from the cup game? Because obviously when Newcastle played, I mean, I'll try and find that team that played that night for Newcastle. But as far as I remember, they played a relatively strong side, whereas we played a lot of our like fringe players and kind of players that needed a lot of fitness, and we took them to penalties, and arguably we had it in our hands and bottled it in the end, with Sangare and Awunya unfortunately missing. But do you kind of take a lot of positives from that result, that we can go get something, or is it? I know it is a completely different game, but is it a completely different game?
Yeah, I think it is. I think the positives won't come from that game. The positives will come from what we've done in the last 4 games. 3 wins and a draw. I mean, if we can't go into a game being confident on that sort of form, we never will be. So I don't think the cup game will have too many bearings. I think they'll certainly know that we've got a decent squad, because Newcastle would have looked at the team sheets that night and thought, well, this should be a walk in the park. So they're playing all the players that have either just signed and never played, or young lads. So I think it'll be a completely different game. I think the mindset's shifted a little bit. Much like West Ham on Saturday, I'll be honest. I went on a West Ham podcast last week and I said that us beating West Ham could be huge psychologically, because we're now at 8 points ahead of them already. That's 3 games. That's a lot with a quarter of the season gone. So much like Newcastle, I think Newcastle will see this as a chance to go a point behind us going into the international break. And then all of a sudden they start thinking, right, well, we're actually where we should be at this stage in the league table now. Whereas if we win, then yeah, happy days again.
The title charges up.
We go 7 points clear of Newcastle if we win. So
yeah.
I mean, it's there's little things like that we're kind of, there's like mind games within the season itself, isn't there, that are all going on. So yeah.
Well, this was the team that they started with in that cup game. So they had Nick Pope in goal, Kieran Trippier, Emil Kraft, Dan Burn, Lewis Hall, Joel Linton, Tonali, Willock, Almiron, Isak, and Barnes, which is pretty strong, really. Like, I mean, and the subs they brought on. The subs they brought on was Guimaraes, Gordon, Livramento, and Longstaff. So that's 15 players there. All can start games quite comfortably for Newcastle, in my opinion. I mean, I'll bring up their team that they had from last week, and it's not actually that dissimilar, really. I mean, I'll just read it for the audio listeners. So Nick Pope in goal, Livramento, Shaw, Byrne, Hall, Willock, Bruno Guimaraes, Longstaff, Anthony Gordon, Isak, and Joel Linton. I mean, that's not that dissimilar from that cup game, and the team we had were literally, like you said, just full of lads that were trying to find fitness or hadn't played it. So we had Carlos Miguel, Willy Bolly, Andrew Amabamadile, Zach Abbott, Moreno had just signed at that point, Nico Dominguez, Anderson, Eric da Silva Moreira, Jota Silva, Wunyan Sosa, and subs that come on were Milenkovic, Sangari, Williams, Hudson-Odoi, and Alanga. So I kind of don't fear Newcastle. I got asked this again on the Newcastle pod, like, who do you fear? And I'm like, Isak, because he's a bit of a nemesis, and he's one of the best strikers in the league. But realistically, there's no one on that team that I kind of go, oh, we're going to have to watch them. I think Bruno Guimaraes is a really good player, but there's no reason why Ryan Yates can't wave his wand of housery on him and kind of get into him.
Yeah, I think Yates has got to do the same job as he's done on Enzo and McAllister this season, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I like Gordon. I think Gordon's a good player. I think he's... But again, Moreno's done a grand job on Salah this season, hasn't he? So
yeah. And he's got Murillo behind him.
Like you say, it's the wrong term. I think they've got players who... Their match winners are going to be Gordon, Isak and Bruno for me. But yeah, like you say, there's plenty in our squad for them to be looking at and thinking, they're pretty good. We need to watch them. So it's just a nice feeling. The shift from this time last year is completely bonkers, if you ask me, because we were constantly going into, well, I was constantly going into games thinking, I was going into like a block of 6 fixtures thinking, I don't know where we're going to get a point there. And I don't think I was the only fan who was fearing that, because we were just so bad at this time last year. Now we're going into games against teams like Newcastle with the list you've just put up there, thinking, do you know what? It wouldn't actually be a massive shock if we went and won.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I think this is where I like, when I spoke about our style of football, is so different to the rest of the league. So, like, against Arsenal, I don't know if you managed to watch any of that. Obviously, being at a wedding, you probably didn't. I watched it in the Trent Nav, and I'm thinking, like, Newcastle was set up really well with their two lots of banks of, like, well, they had the 4 and the 3, and then obviously the three up front, kind of pressing from the front. But they weren't really pressing Arsenal. They were kind of like letting Arsenal try and come onto them and just like break us down. And whereas we are a team that will be a bit more direct and kind of try and turn Newcastle around. And I think that's something that Arsenal really failed to do. And we've got the pace, like in Alanga and Hudson-Odoi, to do that, and fullbacks that will get forward as well when the kind of time is right. And I think it just lends itself to be a very interesting game from a tactical point of view, because I don't really know how Eddie Howe's going to see it, because he might see it as a game where they can really go and press us really high, whereas we're kind of press resistant because we kind of just bypass it half the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he does that, I think we'll have a good chance of winning, because I think we've shown this season that we can cope with teams that do that. I think it's just nice to be going into home games as well, not thinking that we're going to just sit back and hope to get something on the counter, because I don't think that's really Nuno's style. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it for the simple reason that the games that we've played since we came up against Newcastle have largely been really entertaining, especially the ones at Forest. So, I think, I'm just looking forward to it. Bring it on.
Just bringing this team back up. Where do you see us getting our joy, Lee?
The centre backs. I don't know what it is. I said when Newcastle got into the Champions League that they would need to make that team look like one that can consistently get into, not even the Champions League, just Europe. They need a stellar centre-back for me. I mean, there was one available for 12 million that would have been absolutely perfect for Newcastle. And now he's going to be worth about 60. So good luck with that one, Newcastle. But someone like Milenkovic would have been absolutely perfect, because he'd have been in their price bracket. But as these so-called bigger clubs tend to do, they let them go to somewhere like Forest first and then think, oh, he's pretty good in Prem. Let's now pay over the odds for him. I think they need a centre-back. I think that if it is Byrne and Shaw that play, I'd be quite confident of at least scoring, I think.
At least Wood's got a chance of winning a foot race against Burton. I mean, he rinsed him at St. James's, didn't he? Really, like, absolutely unbelievable.
If I remember rightly, I think Elanga did him quite dirty last year, didn't he?
Consistent basis.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think that's got to be an area that we could. What I would say is their fullback. I don't think Hall played much last year, and I think from what I understand from the guy I interviewed for the programme ahead of this one, he's been saying that Hall's probably been their best player. So that'll be interesting to see how he goes, considering how well Einer's been playing on the right back for us. So yeah, the fullbacks look promising, but yeah, I'm still quite satisfied if them two play at centre back.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's an interesting one because they play such a flat 4-3-3, whereas we're playing that 4-3-2-1. Elanga and Hudson-Odoi will work back to help the fullbacks, and they're asking kind of Longstaff and Willock to kind of do that, in my opinion. So does that, for me, that kind of leaves a lot of space in the middle for us to kind of exploit with either Gibbs-White, Anderson, or Dominguez kind of operating there. Like Yates will probably be the one that will be asked to kind of be a bit more disciplined and sit. I just think that's where we can get a bit of joy, unless Newcastle are a bit more disciplined and kind of go into a 5 when they're out of in midfield. That is, sorry, when they're out of possession. So it'll be interesting to see it from that point of view. Obviously, I won't be able to get to watch it properly. I'll be at work, unfortunately. I'm missing this one, but I'm going to bring up your team, Lee. And for the audio listeners, it's largely unchanged. It's Elliot Anderson back in for Morgan Gibbs-White, who came back in on Saturday. What's made you go with Anderson over Gibbs-White, other than the obvious Newcastle connection there?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't think he's fully fit, and I just think Anderson deserves this chance against his former club based on what he's done while Gibbs-White's been out. It was a tough decision because I am a firm believer that if Gibbs-White's 100% fit, then he has to play somewhere. But yeah, I just think, I mean, one option, just looking at that, how it's up there now, one option, I guess, to consider if, let's say, Gibbs-White is, really 100% fit and he wants to play him, there is an option to maybe play Gibbs-White instead of Elanga. I know that's a bit of a square peg in a round hole, but it does give us the kind of ability to go a little bit like the Liverpool game when we're out of possession, which again is perhaps a little bit negative at home. But these are all decisions for the manager, and that's why I've paid the big bucks. But I would just go with Anderson just because, like I say, I don't think Gibbs-White's completely fit, and I don't want to risk him breaking down and being out for a prolonged period. Obviously, we've got 2 weeks off after this. That's also into consideration. But I just think it'd be really harsh on Anderson to kind of... Newcastle fans have been waxing lyrical about watching him against other teams, and then to drop him for this one, I just think it'd be... I don't know. I just think it could do more harm than good for his confidence.
Yeah, I would largely agree with this team. I wouldn't want to see Elanga get dropped, personally. I just think the way he's played the last 2 games, I think he's looked a lot sharper and a lot more kind of knowing what he wants to do with his game. And he's trying to get on the outside of fullbacks, and then it's creating chances and it's actually winning his corners. And I think that's better than him trying to like drive inside of a player and lose the ball, and then teams have a counter-attacking opportunity. I just don't think he's got that skill set at the moment. I think he's still kind of trying to find how to do that, in my opinion. People got to remember, I mean, myself included in this, still like his only like second full season in professional football, really, in the grand scheme of things, and in the Premier League at that. So I think he's still got bags of potential and still things to learn, and that's just kind of one of them. Whereas Hudson-Odoi's the complete opposite, where he knows what he wants to do, and he's pretty good at it. And obviously, hopefully from our perspective, Newcastle have the same kind of defensive setup where they let Hudson-Odoi be on the free on the edge of the box to just shoot willingly at goal. That would be lovely. I think I wouldn't mind having Gibbs-White on the bench, and you kind of got someone like him to bring off. I mean, the ball for the first goal to Moreno through the channel it looks so easy, but it's just brilliant. Like, just completely splits open West Ham and gives Moreno that chance to put a ball into the box for Wood. I mean, they must be terrified of Chris Wood at the moment.
Well, I think every club will be. 8 goals in 10 games. I mean, yeah, everyone is. I think it's class, isn't it? I would have thought that. I mean, he should blow last season's total out of the water, I suppose. But again, like I said earlier, well, yeah, like I said earlier, I mean, I just hope that if he does go on a little blip, we don't lose our heads and start saying he's not good enough, because quite clearly he is. Yeah. I mean, he's another one. He'll be bang up for this game, won't he? Because he got the hat-trick last season. Yeah, I think you'd be a hard push man to back against him, scoring against him again on Sunday, I suppose.
Definitely. Anthony Taylor refereeing on Sunday, Lee. I've got to kind of ask about that. I mean, I think I don't know if it was Christian or Reese who's put on our social media with Phil Mitchell bursting through the doors and shouting Taylor if we don't get a penalty, or Newcastle got a dubious one, I think it was. What do you kind of make of that appointment of him? Because we have I don't want to talk about a referee, but there's been no there's no kind of secret that we don't really like him.
Very, very convenient that I think Nuno's first game on the touchline, he's reffing. I don't like little conspiracy things like that, but it does seem a little bit strange. His first game back after a ban, where he probably lost his head at a referee because of Taylor. Yeah, did Taylor ref this game last year? I think he did, didn't he?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. He didn't give the penalty on Tybo.
If you,
but that was VAR. That was a VAR thing. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I'm not going to become that sort of fan that when we're banging form, we're already questioning what a referee's going to do. I don't particularly like Taylor's style of refereeing. Clearly, it's worked for him over the years. Clearly, he's a far better referee than I am. But that doesn't mean I have to enjoy watching him take charge of Premier League football matches, I suppose. But yeah, like I say, we get far too bogged down with stuff that we can't control. We can't control that now. If something happens in the game and it leads us to, make a bit of an inquest and receive another apology for the file, then fair enough. But until then, let's get on with it. What I would say is I think the referees that we've had since the Palace game, 3 games, have all been fine. And I've not really had a chance to kind of discuss anything. I think the decision on Gibbs White against West Ham probably should have been upgraded to a red, I think.
Yeah, that was awful.
The kick out on Yates is, I'm sorry, but there's absolutely nothing in that. There's nothing at all in that. It's no different to what Van Dijk did with, can't remember who it was, which Arsenal player it was in that game. It's just nothing. We're asking. No, I'm not even going into it. It's just nothing. If that happens, it's Yates on Somerville, we're all absolutely buzzing and making montages about him being a passion merchant because he's dared to do something like that. I just don't think there's anything in it. I think all the referees that we've had, but I think it was Banks on Saturday, we've had Tim Robinson, we've had Pawson, all been absolutely fine. And there's people that still go, oh, well, he missed a throw-in on the halfway line in the 37th minute. Well, come on. I mean, it's spoken like people who've never... If you referee a game of football and the only thing that you can nitpick at is a throw-in on the halfway line in the 37th minute, or even a missed foul on the halfway line in the 37th minute, then you've had a bloody good game.
Yeah, I mean, it was Anthony Taylor last season against Newcastle, so just to put it out there. But yeah, no, it's going to be a tough game. I think it's one we can win. But I can also see Newcastle, if they get it right, they could also win. But just been so good defensively as a team. Never mind just as the back five. I think as a team we've just been collectively so brilliant. I find it really hard to kind of pinpoint where Newcastle there's going to have to be a moment of brilliance rather than like us making a mistake. And that's how I kind of see it. Joe, like last season, you was always worried about, where's the mistake going to come in? Is it going to come in from the goalkeeper? Is it going to come in from the centre half who's had to come in and partner Murillo because he's had about 7 different partners? You're not getting that this season. And it's just so refreshing and so nice, like you say, that bit of pressure's kind of taken off for this game, although that there's going to be some fans who are going to be upset, obviously, if we lose, and that's only natural because everyone wants to win. But I think in the grand scheme of things, I think a lot of the fan base are on the same kind of wavelength. Quite humbling, really, like quite kind of grounded in some respects.
I mean, I was just thinking while you were saying that. I think what I would say is the pressure is off to a certain degree. However, what we've got to look at is after the international break, we've got Arsenal away. Now, from here on in, with 19 points on the board, if we win our home games, we're going to be absolutely fine and dandy. If we win all of our home games from here on in, we'll probably finish comfortably in the top half. But with Arsenal next, if we were to win on, I'm going to use the term now, if we were to win on Sunday, the Arsenal game is a complete free hit. With Ipswich to follow at home, the Arsenal game is a complete free hit. 22 points on the board from 11 games and you're going to Arsenal away. Yeah, it'd be great to get something. Of course it would. That's football. You want your team to get something. But there would be absolutely nothing riding on that game at all other than 3 points. If we lost, fine. If we won, great. Get a point, happy days. But it would be a free hit. It really would. At that stage of the season, there's no pressure on it whatsoever. So yeah, that's a big incentive to get all three on Sunday, I guess.
Definitely. And Arsenal, tough games to play into Milan tonight as we record this. To play Chelsea at the weekend before they play us after the international break. So could be I mean, Arteta's might be feeling it by the end of
Looks like Odegaard's on the mend, sadly, doesn't it? But there's games yet. Who knows?
Someone will kick him, I'm sure. But no, I think other than that, I think we've kind of covered out all bases, Lee. But what's your score prediction for Sunday?
Well, you moan at me for going for draws all the time, so I'm not going to this time. I'm going to go for a very slender Forest win. I don't know. I just think we're in such good form and we're in such confident form that it's going to be us as the player that produces a moment of magic. So I'm going to go for a very slender 1-0 win.
I mean, I'm surprised by that because of obviously how many goals have been scored in this past fixture. I think I said 2-0 or 2-1. And I'm now kind of revising it, and I kind of think like maybe it might be a bit high scoring, like 3-2 or 4-2 or something ridiculous. But
yeah, I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that it's one game that, you know, if we did concede first, which we don't do very often, touch wood, if we do concede first, it's not the sort of game where I'd be overly concerned. Obviously, if we conceded first in like the 78th minute, then it'd be a bit different. But if it was in the first half and they came out all guns blazing, I'd still fancy us to get something from the game, I think.
Yeah, I think it just lends itself to be such a good, entertaining game of football, in my opinion. I just think two kind of different styles of football, a lot of talent on show. I mean, Newcastle they've not scored as many goals as they normally would. They've only scored 10 goals, but only conceded 10 goals, which is only three more than us. So definitely an interesting game. I think I think Newcastle fans will see it as an opportunity to kind of put their season back on track with obviously recent wins over Arsenal and Chelsea in the cup. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. I mean, I keep saying interesting. I know that will probably bug someone, but it is going to be a really good game of football, and like you say, bit of pressure off, and we can really go and have a go at Newcastle. And I don't see why we can't win. So yeah, hopefully we do. But until next time, when the opposition fan view will be out, come on, you Reds.